Hello, hello. It's Grumpy. I promised some friends a controller tutorial, so that's what we're going to do. Now, the few basics. To start off with controller, you know most of it. L2, R2. What you don't know, you'll notice that my screen probably looks very little like your screen. Now, most everything can be changed in the HUD editor. There is one element on here that cannot be changed in the HUD editor, and you will need virtual mouse mode for that. For virtual mouse mode, you need to press L1 and R3, which is pressing in on your right stick. There you can see we have virtual mouse mode, and our right stick is our mouse pointer. And of course, L2 and R2 are our left and right buttons. And this is what you cannot move in the HUD, your chat window. So let's grab it and drag it, and you can see we can drag it around now. And we can resize it it's a little hard to control, but hold down your left button and you can resize it. That is one element that you cannot change in the HUD editor, is your chat window. So by using virtual mouse mode, you can change it. Let's just leave it there. And again, it's L1, which, it's still gonna, if you're clicking on anything, it's gonna still function as L1. But L1 and R3 to turn it off and on. So that's easy enough. Now you can see virtual mouse mode is off, so I no longer have a mouse cursor. Now, the basics of controller is control, obviously. You know this, and you can see I've got these extra buttons up here. We'll get to that in a bit. And hit R1 changes you between the different things. Now, if you can see it cycling through a couple different hotbars. If I have my weapon out, it cycles between two hotbars, because I only use 1 and 2 when in combat. And I will show you how to adjust for that also. So let's put our weapon away. And yes, my house is very basic. I bought the house, and I spend most of my time on, this is on Dynamis, so I spend most of my time on primal. Yeah, I bought the house. I was like, yeah, and if we go outside, you can see why I haven't really put a lot into it. I managed to get a house that right out front is a summoning bell, a market board, and an Ethernet charge. So it's like, yeah, we got everything we need right outside the front door. So that's why I haven't put much into my house. So just ignore it. But you'll notice if I hold down L2 and R2, whoa, how did that happen? If I switch it up and do R2 and then L2, whoa, we get something entirely different. So we will go in here, character configuration. Oh, and yeah, you can set this to mouse mode in your character just by pressing your start button on your controller. You'll go to this instead of the big drop down at the top menu. I prefer that, and I'm still using my D-pad to go back and forth across these, and my X button. So, and that is in, let's see, we're doing controller. So, okay, the thing with the left, the L2 and R2, let's start with this. Now, I prefer my cast time to be a circle in the center. You can change it to bottom left. And you can see when I do this, that's the circle. That's the center circle for your cast time. So it's showing your cooldown. So that's what that setting is. These you can just you can turn it completely off, but I don't see why you would want to. Display hotbar numbers, and again you can do virtual mouse mode and move this around the screen. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really do much. I mean, it's personal preference with a lot of this stuff. Yeah, I don't like a lot of clutter, so I'm looking. This is the first tutorial I've ever done, but you can see I've changed all my the hot bars I do not use because I use cross hot bars. So I changed them all to one format, and then in my HUD, I shoved them all off to the side to get them out of the middle. So you can see when I go into my HUD editor, HUD layout, all the hot bars are down in that lower left corner, out of the way of everything else. It just makes for less confusion. So, but again, that's entirely I don't use those hot bars, so I just wanted them out of my way. I don't play Summoner, so I don't use the pet cross hot bar, so that's why that's set like that. Uh, and this is just when you're on your mount, it pops up your dismount button. Now, here's where we get into the important stuff. This is all just, personal preferences. Sharing. You want to turn these all off so that these are unique to each job. And these will be shared between all jobs across your whole character. That's what these mean when you're in the shared screen. And what that means is, you can see this is 1, 2, I'm holding down the R1 button in case you're wondering, 3 and 4. These are all just specifically for Dancer. You can see that some of them are blank because I haven't filled them in, but those are specific to Dancer. Now if I go to the D-pad, these are all shared across all jobs. So, but that's why, if you get jobs that use a lot of buttons, you can set it up to where you can your skills are all confined to just these 4. But I've never had to go, these 3 I never use. The leg sweep, one puts a bind on them, and one puts slow on them, and I never use them in combat, so that's why they're relegated to 3. But yeah, that's very important actually, the sharing, because like I said, you want to reserve these for each job specifically. So if you turn all these off, then you won't get them filled in with stuff from other jobs. Now, always display across hotbar you should have on. Display hotbar help, you'll see the text. Now I'm on my PS5 since we're doing, but I do play with controller on the Steam, or not Steam, the PC version also. But on my PC version, I turn that off because I don't want that text in the way. And you can see it's gone now. It's not covering anything up. These are transparencies. Like if you have this one on, If you change these, you can make, you see, this is the R2 side. You can set it so that the L2 side is faded out when you're on one side or the other. I don't personally like it because, I can't see them as well. I can't see the cooldowns as well. This, never change this. I mean, yes, you have to sit there and hold in L2 or R2 to use your skills, but the toggle is you hit it and then it stays on. And if you want to stop using your skills, you have to hit it again and turn it off. And mixed, I'm not even sure what mixed does. And this, I never changed this. But you'll see those buttons above. That's them. Those are the extra buttons. And I always try to set them. No, they're supposed to be. Yeah, that's how they're supposed to be positioned. I usually position them right above my regular. That's why I turn the text off, because with the text on, it would pop up over those extra hot bars. All right, so we're going to apply that. But yeah, that's where these extra, and you get to them by double clicking L2 or R2. Or you can, like I said, if your weapon is out, you just hit your R1 and switch between. But you, like I said, you can also get to those while your weapon is out by double clicking. And see, the reason I have this on, the orange one on her twice, is this is for AoEing. So if I've double clicked this and I'm AoEing, I can still do my standard step dance. That's why that's on there twice. Yeah, and then I can continue doing my AoE moves. So that's just, like I said, one of the side benefits of having those extra bars above with a double click is you can have your single attack skills down here, your double attack skills up there. No. And then the last place is where things really get interesting. Now, you see me doing this with the L2 and the R2 buttons, switching back and forth depending on which one you hit first. That is turned on with this. Enable expanded controls by holding L2 and R2. And you can set it to a different cross hotbar if you want. I keep, as you can see, I keep, my character, my inventory, my journal, my book for, hunt logs on that one. I have mounts on the other one. I have my duty finder, and I transporting and returning and all that. Party finder is on there, and I can get to them quite easily just by alternating, which one I hold down first, L2 or R2. So that's where that comes from. Now, the double clicking to get that, I have it set to hotbar 2. So my main skills are on hotbar 1, sub skills or AoE skills are on hotbar 2. Now, when you first turn this on, it defaults to hotbar 8, which is already up here. So that's why I changed it to 2. But you want to, if you set it to this, you can see there's only 4 buttons. It's up to you. I like having all 8 buttons, But if you want only 4 buttons, hey, you can switch to that. And again, this is where when my weapon is out, I customize. This is when my weapon is sheathed. And I can switch between hotbar 1 and 2 and hotbar 6. I can't even remember what I put on hotbar 6, but that's when my weapon is put away. When my weapon is out, hitting R1 will only go to hotbar 1 and 2. That's where you set that, and you set that by enabling customization. And enable hotbar switching between drawing and sheathing your weapon is, I may turn that off. I think, that's, let me see, let's apply this. I'm on here, okay? So my weapon is out. And I think that with that on, yeah, see, it switched back to hotbar 1. That's what that does. Even if you switch to hotbar 2, with that turned on, let me go back in there and show you what it is. Enable auto hotbar switching. With that turned on, even if you switch to hotbar 2, 3, 4, when you put your weapon away at the end of combat, it's going to switch back to hotbar 1. That's what that one does. And this, I never use any of this down here. When you go into PvP, you get automatic PvP skills that switches over automatically. So let me grab a drink here. And I know this is probably not like most tutorials you've ever heard, but, hey, I'm 60 years old. I can do what I want. Now, that's all setting your controller up. Let's go engage in some combat somewhere. Yeah, let's switch to a different job. Let's switch to Black Mage. Okay. Yes, update that. And we're going to go to here. Now, this is actual usage in combat skills, because there's, let me zoom back out here so we can see, now that you don't need to see a close-up of me waving. Because there's something that it actually took me quite a while to figure out. And one of them is, you can see I've got an enemy selected. Now, if I hit my R1 button, it's going to switch my hotbars. But if I hold down the L2 button, or R2 button, with my middle finger, it now switches targets. It works like the tab key. As long as you're holding down the L2 or the R2, hitting L1 or R1 works like your tab key. And that is one of the, and there's nothing in the game that tells you that. And, I went years to, okay, I let go of it. Now I can use my D-pad to still switch. But then, I have to re-hit the L2 to start casting skill again. And it was years before I figured out if I just keep holding the button down, I can just tab through with the L1 and R1. One's forward, one's backward. So, yeah, you hit a target. And that target is now dead, so you're still holding your R2 down. Hit R1. We're now on the other target. And that one thing alone will make your life in combat infinitely easier. Just realizing that you can just hold the button down and keep switching between targets. Yeah, see, when I'm running around fighting stuff, I just, yeah, like I said, I've got my middle finger on the R2 button, and then my index finger is free to hit the R1 button. And you know, especially when you're in a dungeon and you know, the tank's doing big pulls and you're like, oh crap, you know, and like I said before, you're letting go and using the D-pad. Well, now you're just holding on and hitting R1 and not stopping casting, or you know, hitting things with your glaives as a dancer or whatever. Yeah, you just can keep going, keep switching targets, keep going. And I think that's about it. I mean, most of everything is setting up. You know, like I said, setting up so that, like I said, you got your shortcuts to your utility stuff with your on your, and you can actually get to it here. But you know, with that one setting turned on, you just hit, depending on which order you hit them. I mean, like I said, I put all my mounts and everything on there. Now, with my weapon put away, you can see there. I go to that. With my weapon put away, I can just hit R1, and that's the third option. Is I can get to my mounts and some emotes, and you know, so that's just an extra. You know, like I said, that's when you got. That's why you put stuff on these, the 5, 6, 7, and 8. Well, 5, 6, 7, 7, because 8 is all your utility. Like I said, I put my duty finder on there, my party finder on there. I make sure my inventory is on there, my recommendations is on there, my journal is on there, and yeah, I can get to it all quite easily. But yeah, that and yeah, having it when you're in combat and your weapon is drawn, you can just hit R1. And once you've got it set, you can just switch between, you know, R1 and R2 tabs of your controller. Or, with this turned on, you can double click. You know, if you don't like that, then like I said, just set it so when your weapon is drawn, just hitting R1 switches. You know, it's entirely personal preference. So, but that's it for now. I will be available if you have any questions. You know, find me on Twitch. You know, Grumpy Old Man 1962 on Twitch. And also, and they're attacking me. I gotta go. Bye.